Welcome to the Purple Jaguar. And after a long week of missing Tuesday, I'm going to go ahead and combine both podcasts that I would normally do. So we're going to go over last week's bets, and we're going to also go over my odds for this week, and then a little bit of recap for week 2. And to start off with the recap, we went 2-1 in the bets. The Giants were the only ones that did not come through for us, and that's because they got off to a horrendous start against the Arizona Cardinals, which can happen, especially when you're playing against a backups quarterback and you don't have a lot of film on what they like to do. You can get got in a game like that, and the Giants did avoid ultimately losing, but they did not cover the 3.5 points. That was the spread, and so we lost that one. But every other one hit completely fine. I like the Chiefs. The Chiefs won by 8. They had three. They were favored by 3.5. And then what was the other one? Man, the other one. Either way, it hit too. So we're 2-1. That's great. Moving forward, I would like to see like a lossless week. Of course, that would build a lot of confidence. But ultimately, where we're at in the football season is fugazi, whatever you want to call it. It's records don't necessarily tell the whole story of what teams are going to be good, what teams are going to last by the end of the season. And so if we were to look at the standings right now, and let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and look at the standings. I'm going to pull out my phone. I'm going to get the ESPN app fired up, and then we're going to look at the standings right now. And we're going to talk about how this can be a little bit fictional. This could be a little fictional on what's really going to happen. And so let's go to the NFL, and let's give me 1 second. Let me pick a random team. Start looking at the standings. Okay. So for the NFC, we're going to start with them. For the NFC. Okay. Let's make sure you can see me. We're good to go. All right. Let's go conference standings. So right now, if the playoffs were to start, let's just say today. The playoffs were to start today. Miami, Baltimore would be the 1 and 2 seed. Okay. Then you would have the Raiders and the Jags as the division, like they would be top seed in their division. And then for obviously the wild card, you can't do that because everyone else is 1-1. So the 2 undefeated teams in the AFC right now, because there's only 2 actually, surprisingly enough, there's only 2 undefeated teams in the AFC, and that is the Miami Dolphins and the Baltimore Ravens. Now the Baltimore Ravens look like they're legit, especially in the conference that's starting to fall apart. Like we all thought the AFC North was going to be a barn burner of a conference, and right now in the AFC North, you got the Cincinnati Bengals who are 0-2, which that's common. They like to start 0-2 for whatever reason. And then you have the Pittsburgh Steelers who do not look good on offense at all. Like they look confused on offense. Then you have the Cleveland Browns, and I don't know who believes in them, but Deshaun Watson looks like Russell Westbrook or Wilson. That's who he. I mean, that's his comp right now. Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson. I don't even know who's better out of both of them, but that's what they look like. And so it's kind of wonky. You got the New York Jets. They're hanging on right now. They got a big win in week 1. Big win. And why I say that's a big win is because it gives them a false sense of hope. It gives them a little bit more leverage if they do want to go get another quarterback. But ultimately, the season after Aaron Rodgers goes down is a wash. The AFC is just too strong. Just too strong, too quarterback-centric. Their defense is good, but I've watched Patrick Mahomes 4 years, Chiefs baby, carve up top defenses year in, year out. And in the Super Bowl, he's always played the number 1 defense. He scored 38 on the Eagles last year. The year before that, his offensive line blew up, or a couple years ago. And then the first Super Bowl he won, the 49ers were the number 1 ranked defense. Funny how they still have all the same players for the most part. But it's just, you can't really believe the standings right now after 2 games. And I think week 3 is going to bring some more clarity to what the league is going to potentially look like in December. So let's go to the NFC now. I did the AFC first. Whoops. NFC. So you have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. You have seven undefeated teams. So seven teams that are 2-0. Now, of these seven teams, let's look at who's the posers. Who is pretending that they are going to be good? And I'm going to go straight to the NFC North or South. The NFC South, and just for recap, is the Falcons, Saints, Buccaneers, Carolina. They were going to be perpetually voted on by every analyst the worst division in football this year. They have three, count them, 1, 2, 3, 2-0 teams. How long do we think that's going to last? Well, clearly it's not going to last very much longer because we have Atlanta Falcons. They're playing. Who are they playing this week? I can't remember who they're playing. We'll go over that in a minute. But the Atlanta Falcons do not have a passing attack yet. I don't know if they're going to get one. Cordell Patterson, one of their playmakers, has been out dealing with whatever he's dealing with. They have a great running game. Their defense is okay, but they're 2-0. New Orleans Saints. Derek Carr, to me, is the most fascinating quarterback because he has all the talent of at least Kirk Cousins, but somehow his stats don't add up. He's gonna throw a pick. He's actually pick prone. I'm gonna say he's got that a little bit of Josh Allen in him. It's like he's gonna throw a pick, or Jimmy Garoppolo gonna throw a pick. Like right now, if you took Jimmy Garoppolo to throw a pick against the Steelers this week, you're actually not gonna make your money back because that's how high of a percentage chance that he's gonna throw a pick against the Steelers. That to me is starting to look like Derek Carr, even with the Saints, even with the amount of weapons that he has. And when you can plug and play Taysom Hill, which I will just throw this out here. I'm going to throw you a bone. Taysom Hill might be one of the most valuable tight ends in fantasy because he could run the ball for 8 to 10 times in a game. He could catch the ball. He could run a quarterback draw and get some rushing yards doing that. He is not a tight end, but for some reason on all fantasy platforms, he is considered a tight end. And so I really like to plug Taysom Hill in, especially if I'm looking for a cheap tight end on FanDuel or DraftKings. I love plugging Taysom Hill in because you never know what kind of stats he's going to have. Now, does he have stinker games? Of course, but the value to me is always there for him because they use him in so many different ways. So there's a bone for you, Taysom Hill, the New Orleans Saints. Now, if I had to pick who's going to actually win this division after 2 games, it's a toss-up, honestly. I could tell you who's not. It's Carolina, but in their own too. But I like Baker Mayfield playing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think out of all the quarterbacks, I might trust Baker Mayfield the most in that division, which is saying a lot. I don't think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers expected to get off to this hot of a start. Now we'll see what happens through the next few weeks if it cools back down and they come back to earth, but the most talented team is the New Orleans Saints, by far. They're the most talented team. But for some reason, Derek Carr has always been on a very talented team, even with the Raiders, and underproduced. So that's about as much of a take as you're going to get on the NFC South right now because no one's talking about them. In the NFC East, the most talked about division in football, by far, more than college, more than the NFL, any other division in the NFL. Why? Because there's a star in that division, and I'm so tired of talking about that star, and I'm tired of hearing about the star. But because they are the other division that has 3 teams that are 2-0, let's get into it. So the posers. Commanders is the 3rd to 4th worst team in that division. I do not believe that the Washington Commanders are better than the Giants. Now, with that being said, Saquon Barkley is now hurt and down for 3 weeks. The Giants were widely considered Saquon Barkley in a bag of chips by a lot of sports analysis. We'll see if Daniel Jones can prove why he makes $40 million a year in the absence of Saquon Barkley. But I don't know. we know that Philly and Dallas are going to be competing throughout the entire year for whoever's going to win that division. Philly's not looking great, but they're winning games. And we've perpetually hyped up the Dallas Cowboys every single year because they are kind of like, hot take, the Dallas Cowboys are kind of like the Buffalo Bills of the NFC. The Dallas Cowboys throw knockout punches. If they're going to beat you, they're going to beat you. And I actually like the Dallas Cowboys getting, like, they are giving up so many points this weekend, and I like it. I didn't pick it for my bets, but if I had to go and expand on how many bets I picked, I would pick the Dallas Cowboys. Because if they're going to beat a team, they're going to whoop the team. That's just the way they play. I don't believe in them in close games with good quarterbacks on the other side. They tend to lose those games. But if they're going to beat a team, they typically whoop them. And so I think what we do is we get all on this Dallas Cowboys hype train because they do have the most fans across the United States of America. That was built in the 90s when football was booming. They had Troy Aikman. They had Marvin Irving, or I think that's is Irving. And then they had, who was their running back then? Man, I cannot remember who their running back was. Emmitt Smith. Duh. Emmitt Smith. So that's where the Cowboys started building that hype. Since then, they have not been to the NFC Championship game, but because they have such loyal fans that are across the entire United States, they are the most talked about. They are actually the highest valued NFL team. Like, they are, like, by a lot. Like, the Dallas Cowboys are valued at $9.2 billion. The average NFL team is valued at $5.1 billion. So they're marketable. They get talked about a lot. But they seem to be kind of like a Mike Tyson type of team where, you know, if they're going to beat you, they're going to beat you bad. So, and they get lucky. Like, let's be honest. Could the Jets game have changed quite a bit if Sauce Gardner gets that interception and takes it back for a touchdown? I mean, at the very least, that could have potentially been a 14-point swing. And so that game is now looking like 23-17 instead of 30-10. But again, the Cowboys, they're the biggest story in the NFL right now. Outside of Deion Sanders, they're the biggest story in football, so I'm not going to bore you with that. But I like the Eagles to still win that division. Something about the Eagles, I just feel like they're finding it. They're learning game by game what their identity needs to be. When you rush for 175 yards and it's not even close, like they're not even, like your running back is not getting touched for 5 to 6 yards. Like, I mean, that's a recipe for how you play that season. Now, people want to get on the whole, well, A.J. Brown got an attitude. Bump that. He gets paid a lot of money because he's good when they need him to be good. If they're running the ball as effectively as they were last week, I don't care if he's over there crying and writing in his diary. Like, you're winning. Get over it. And if you don't like it, I'm going to tell you right now, Devontae Smith is a legit one, and we could probably parse you out, get a 2 wide receiver and some draft picks. Like, if it becomes a more of a problem. So, like, A.J. Brown throwing a fit on the sideline just shows more actually about, it's more about Jalen Hurts' leadership skills because he's not going to be wavered by somebody. Now, they did try to throw the ball to him a couple times. It didn't work out, but it wasn't like they were putting the ball in harm's way to do it. So they did kind of bend to his will a little bit. We'll see. I wouldn't be opposed to taking A.J. Brown this week. In a fantasy, FanDuel or DraftKings, take A.J. Brown. I feel like they're going to try to force feed him the ball early. And then, as long as the game's not getting out of hand, they will start running again. But I think A.J. Brown's going to get force-fed early on some deep routes, maybe some crossers to get him going, keep him happy. When you have an offense that's that talented, you can scheme up some game plans to get other guys involved more. It's kind of like LeBron James used to do with his teams. Like, he would pass the ball the first quarter, maybe take 1 or 2 shots to try to get his shooters going. I think the Eagles will do that with A.J. Brown, so that would be another fantasy guy that I would, maybe take this year or this week. So, moving on. So, after week 2, what we're looking at is we're just looking at a, it's also has a lot to do with who you've played. And we don't know there's some things we know, but there's some things we still don't know. So, for instance, some things we know. We know the Jets have a pretty good defense. I would say pretty good. I would say probably safe bet, top 10. We know that the Dallas Cowboys have a top 3, maybe the best defense in the league. Now, according to stats, they do have the best defense in the league. Their quarterbacks that they've played is Daniel Jones, who looked scared and lost in that game. And then they also played Zach Wilson. So I would hold the phone on just, crowning them the best defense that we've ever seen. But they are good. They are number 1 right now. Some other things we know. The 49ers are looking like a complete team. Brock Purdy's looking good. But jury's still out. We'll see. Because they've played the Steelers, who didn't look like they knew how to play offense, and they've played the LA Rams, who we thought might be tanking this season. So, again, it does matter who you play. Like, the Jaguars and the Chiefs played last week, and to me, I don't think this game got enough respect. It was a 1 o'clock game. I'm Eastern Standard Time, so it was a 1 o'clock game, but that was 2 AFC powerhouses going against each other, and the Chiefs made their offense look not good. Like, they couldn't score a touchdown. And we're talking about an offense that has Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Travis Etienne, Elvin Ingram. Like a high-powered, potent offense. Their third receiver would probably be the Chiefs' 1 receiver, let's be honest. With what's his name? Jones. Yeah, Zay Jones. Would probably be the Chiefs' 1 receiver. Like, I'm not even kidding. But the Chiefs' defense stifled them, got after Trevor Lawrence, and the game never got talked about because why? The Chiefs didn't put up 30 points. Like, for some reason, everyone thinks that the Chiefs have to put up 30 points for it to matter. It's like Patrick Mahomes has now thrown for, I think he threw for maybe just under 300 the first game, and now threw for 305. Now he does have 4 touchdowns to 2 interceptions this year. I think that's going to get cleaned up. One of those interceptions was 100% Kadarius Toney, like, pretty much tapping the ball to another defender and letting him do his thing. But Chiefs aren't getting talked about at all. They're just the reigning, defending Super Bowl champions. But we'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys, who haven't even been to an NFC championship game in 30 years. But, who am I going to get upset? I'm not wearing a Chiefs shirt or anything. But I think the Jaguars are going to bounce back. I think they're going to destroy the Texans by 17. By 17, at least. So, let's get into our Week 5 picks. And we'll start off with that. Nice little introduction. I have the Jaguars, first and foremost, at negative 8.5 points. Why I like the Jaguars with this amount of points is because the Texans are young, they're hurt on defense, and we're just assuming that they are trying to just stumble through this week, or this year. The Jaguars, however, have aspirations to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. They are currently 1-1. They looked very suspect against the Chiefs' defense. Now, that could be, again, I think it's because the Chiefs' defense is actually one of the top in the league. I would say top 10 at least. But who knows? The Jaguars have so much offensive power that all they have to do is scheme pretty much the game. It's like they have one of the top 5 wide receiver cores in the league. They have a top 10 running back. They have a top 10 tight end. There's no reason why they shouldn't score a lot of points against the Texans, who are feisty, but C.J. Stroud is a rookie, and that defense of the Jaguars intercepted Patrick Mahomes. So I wouldn't be surprised if they get a couple turnovers. The offense starts rolling, gets in a rhythm. I'm calling this game 31 or 35 to 10 or 17. Like, that's the point differential I'm giving. So I like the Jaguars here. Next, I like the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans are a well-coached team. They're getting points. They're getting plus 3.5 points. That is what they're getting. Plus 3.5 points. Hold on. 1 second. Tennessee Titans are getting 3.5 points against the Browns. Yeah, 3.5 points against the Browns. Now, why I like the Tennessee Titans. Better coach, okay? More dependable quarterback who's been playing for the last 5 years. Um, Derrick Henry is looking like Derrick Henry. They gave him 25 plus carries last week, rushed for 70 something yards, I think 80 yards, and a touchdown. They have actual wide receivers now. Trey Burke's looking like a solid number 2 wide receiver. They have DeAndre Hopkins that's starting to play himself into game form. I don't think the Browns defense is that good to be able to completely stop the Tennessee Titans offense. Now, one thing that we will say about defenses like the Browns is that they have a good pass rush. Well, what kind of, negates that the most? A strong running game. Absolutely, 100%. Strong running game. So, feed Derrick Henry. Feed, the secondary back. Give him 30, 35 carries, okay? I don't think the Cleveland Browns can score enough points to where I think this game could be a 20-17 game. 20-17 game. Titans winning. And you're giving me 3.5 points. I'm taking Titans. Titans, I love that game. I love that game. I love Coach Vrabel. He seems to get better throughout the year. He seems to win the games he's supposed to win. And when he's the talent's pretty even, he's going to win those games. So I like the Titans this week. So we got Jags and Titans. And then this is my one that those are my 2 sure things. Like my 2 sure, like I feel really good. Like if we go 2-1, I expect those 2 games to hit and this game to let me down. And that's the Vikings versus the LA Chargers. I like the Vikings. And the reason I like the Vikings, let's go to that game. Let me make sure I'm not, speaking correctly, it is at, wait, hold on. The line changed. The line moved. Okay. The line moved. It's still, so, sorry. I just looked and it just updated. So now they got the Vikings as 1-point favorites. They were getting points when I put this, like when I was thinking about this bet. So, getting points, like the Vikings. 1-point favorites, I still like the Vikings because that's only a 2.5-point spread. So we're talking about it's not even a field goal worth of a spread. Seems like the money's starting to come in on the Vikings. I really like the Vikings because they have a lot of success in 1-score games. On the contrary, the Chargers do not. The Chargers always seem to find a way to lose 1-score games. I believe that the Chargers are going to fire Brandon Staley at some point in time this year. Because he just seems like he gets outcoached week in and week out. They have the worst defense in the league, giving up the most points. The Vikings are still no slouch on offense. Like, they can still put up 35, 42 points in a game. No problem. Not at all. And they just got beat. I like the Vikings here. Again, the line moves. So when I picked the Vikings, I actually looked and I did my picks this morning. I was getting plus 1.5. I really like that one. Now the Vikings are favored by 1 point, but it's still not enough. It's a 2.5 point swing. So it's still not enough to make me stay away from the Vikings, but it's different now. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty much a pickup game. So I like the Vikings. I like the Vikings to come through in the 1-score game. Now I'm going to add another bet. And this one, I think this is a give me. Honestly, I don't know. Like if you're doing this and you're sports betting, like take this bet. This is almost a surefire bet. And this is the Pats and the Jets under 37 points for the total in the game. Under 37 points. Pats and the Jets. You're going to make money. Now it's moved again. It's 36.5, but I'm still liking it. I don't think there's going to be more than 30 points scored in this game. Combined. Like last year, they had a game, I think it was, I want to say 10-3, and it was like a punt return was the difference. Like, these games stink. Like, I'm not watching this game. But I would say I take the under on the points. Zach Wilson does not play well against Belichick. Belichick's always good against, like, inexperienced quarterbacks anyways. I think it's going to be a defensive game. I still think the Patriots are going to win, but I just like the under on this. Like, nobody's scoring over 30. Like, they're not scoring over 30 points combined. I wouldn't be surprised if it drops down to like 32 by the time the kickoff happens because these games have been so bad. And they're divisional opponents, so they're going to play twice a year. That's 2 games that you don't have to worry about watching. If you have, NFL Game Pass or whatever, Don't worry about these ones. But those are my games for this week. I look forward to talking to you hopefully on Tuesday, as long as nothing comes up. I like to do a recap and then an odds game so these podcasts aren't like super long or anything, or I'm not super long winded. But watch for the league to start showing you who teams are in the next coming weeks, starting this week. We're about to find out. Same goes for college. We are about to find out if Colorado can compete or if they are just hyped up right now. We're about to find out a lot this weekend. I'm excited for football. Thanks for joining me. This is the Purple Jaguar. I look forward to seeing you next week.